Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is the Weekly Spinner Rack, and I'm your host, Chris. I am probably going to come off as a complete psychopath tonight because the world is crumbling, and I'm going to just try to distract you talking about comic books. So all I can say is, in all seriousness, people are dealing with a lot of stuff. I mean, half my audience is actually having trouble with a snowstorm right now, and all of us are dealing with the insanity that's happening out in Minnesota. But we're going to try to take care of each other by coming together as a community, talking about the shared human experience that we get through storytelling, especially as it relates to comical books. I got a few comics this week, kind of a light week. I believe this was a fifth week, which is a slower week in the distribution schedule, but we have some interesting news to talk about, and I will be drawing tonight. And I think we're going to have a good conversation about a lot of different topics that we're all interested in. So we're going to have a good time. And that is, you know what, you bring up one thing that I am very, very happy about personally. I think you guys know, originally from the Boston area and big New England Patriots fan. Also a bit of a fan of the Seahawks because I live in the Seattle area. So the two teams I sincerely wanted to go to the Super Bowl are actually going to the Super Bowl. Pretty exciting. High of 50. That's not too bad, actually, Beowulf. Nice to see you, folks. Hey, you may have meant thanks for the show, but because of this and because I want to give all of you exactly what you want, I'm going to give you the slow. Anyway, no, we are going to have a great time tonight. I promise. Tell you what, why don't we start with comic book news? I think that'll be fun. Yes, let's start with news.
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Hi, guys. This is April O'Neil from Channel 6 News, and I am here in beautiful New York City.
Yamanoto ga arimasu. I don't have coffee tonight. I am not dealing with any snow because I'm in Seattle. Folks, let me add this, and we are going to get started with some news. A little bit of a clickbait title there. Absolutely need it these days just to get people to tune in, but not completely inaccurate, actually. So let's start, though, with something a little sad, but also a little amazing. Yeah, I don't know how many of you came across this because it's really just breaking today, but Sal Buscema has passed. Today would have actually been Sal Buscema's 90th birthday, but apparently the news broke that he passed away just this past Friday. Age 89, still pretty damn amazing. I think a lot of us would be considering ourselves very lucky to reach an age like that. Thank you for the support here, Steve. Baja blasting in this snowstorm in Syracuse, New York. It's over now, but 1 foot of snow. Solidarity melts ice. Be a homie. That's all it's about. Very, very nice. So Sal Buscema was a guy that I definitely got to grow up reading a lot of his comics. And it was interesting because at first I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of his artwork, but towards the end of his active career, all of a sudden it just clicked with me a little bit, like it took me a while to understand Jack Kirby. And I really started to appreciate that Sal definitely had a rock solid storytelling style and good gesture for his characters, very expressive. He was good at big action. He was good on the Hulk. He was good on Defenders. I personally came to really like his run on Spectacular Spider-Man, but Sal actually began working in comics, folks, in the 1950s. He was inking his big brother, John Buscema, at Dell Comics, often uncredited. Then he got into both advertising and served in the military for a while. So he actually didn't come back to comics until sort of the mid to late 60s, began working at Marvel, getting a name for himself there. Hey, nice to see you, Gene. Oh, good advice. Yeah, I'll put up the ticker. Good point. I will show the ticker. Now you guys have an idea of what's coming up tonight. Worked on a lot of stuff. Some of the things that he should be remembered for: co-created ROM Space Knight, The Defenders. He was the first artist on that team. Characters like Valkyrie and Hyperion. Ton of others, honestly, at Marvel, but those are some of the more notable ones. Had a great run, like I say, on Spectacular Spider-Man with J.M. DeMatteis. I think this was a great run. It was very emotional. They've retconned some of the stuff, but at the time, they had a really big arc where Harry Osborn passed away, and it played it really, really fair. You know, he was kind of a villain, but he was still sincerely Peter's best friend, and I think that they adapted a lot of that into the Sam Raimi trilogy of movies, that storyline. So he did a lot. You know, he was always there for Marvel. He did some stuff at DC and other competitors, but mostly I think is going to be remembered for Marvel. I mentioned that he worked on Hulk. I didn't forget. This made me think. If you worked on comics in the 50s, that is technically still the golden age. The golden age is, late 30s, 40s, and 50s. It really isn't until the 60s, really late 50s, early 60s, that you can argue the Silver Age starts. I think most people will point to Showcase #4 by DC Comics with the new version of The Flash. And if not that, then maybe Fantastic Four #1. But like for golden age artists that are still alive, there's not many. Angelo Torres is still alive. He mostly worked on Mad, but he did a bunch of stuff in comics. And of course, Larry Lieber, Stan Lee's younger brother, did co-create a lot of important Marvel superheroes, worked on books like Ant-Man and Thor. And I don't know who else necessarily you could argue started in the golden age. I've been trying to rack my brain and look at names. And in the last 5 years, a lot of them have passed. So we're sort of just reaching a milestone era where, we're going to, look to our Silver Age artists and writers as the luminaries in the field. But he was technically a golden age artist, and pretty rough to lose him. But I also think you make it to 89 and you've had this tremendous career creating all these creations that will live on beyond you. It means that, 20 years from now, somebody might be reading some sort of an omnibus or see a movie and want to go back to the original issues. And they're going to still discover Sal Buscema, because he really did create an amazing portfolio of work. And I think he's an underrated artist. It took me a while to come around to appreciating what he did well. But when I got it, I was like, yeah, he is very good. And just wanted to share that. Moving forward. This looks fun to me, a crossover like this. Thunderhawks. Beginning in April, Dynamite is going to have a 5-month crossover event with 3 titles. So 15 issues altogether. It's a big thing, but they're sort of still segmented. You could probably just read one of these 5-issue miniseries and get a complete story. Because what they have is Thundercats Silverhawks, Mum-Ra the Ever Living, and Thundercats Silverhawks Thunderhawks. And while that all sounds kind of similar, the last one is set in the future timeline, and the other one is set sort of in the Thundercats present. So there is some separation there. It does seem like a lot, but I do also have a lot of faith in Declan Shalvey, who has set a lot of this up. Let's see. I am grateful for this community. Keep reading comics. Thanks, Steve. I'm grateful for all of you too. This is a nice community. There are a lot of fans of both of these properties, and I think that Dynamite has been hiring some great talent to work on it. I really do. These cartoons were just a tiny bit past when I was really into, after school cartoons, but I appreciated they both had better animation than most cartoons of its era. The event is going to feature a bunch of Thundercats being transported to the far future and coming into conflict with the Silverhawks. I think that's what you kind of want out of this. Thundercats Silverhawks is written and illustrated by Declan Shalvey. That's kind of exciting. Mumra the Ever Living is written by Declan, but artist is going to be Rafa Labasco. I've appreciated some stuff he's done before. He did some really good James Bond comics, actually. And Thunderhawks is by Ed Brisson and Vincenzo Federici. The event promises to feature the Thundercats Lost team, sort of a separate team of Thundercats. Characters armoring up in Silverhawks gear, and a new logo by Declan Shalvey. I would say one thing I didn't hear in this, but I would like to see is I would want to see Mumra go up against Monstar. I want to see the villains go up against each other. But who knows whether that happens in this or if that's something they'd hold off for, some follow-up stories. But I think that would be super amusing. Like both of these sort of would-be world conquerors, one more science, one more supernatural. I think that would be a blast. Did Silverhawks ever get an animated reboot? I don't believe so. No, Thundercats got like 2 little reboots. One that was a little more serious and one Thundercats Roar that was more comedic. But I don't think Silverhawks ever got a cartoon reboot that I can remember. That's right. Jean, my sister, you're in there. Do you remember what was the name of the taxi guy on Silverhawks? Because you and I would do an impression. Seymour. It just came to me. Seymour. He goes, "Oh, being a taxi driver is so hard. You know what I mean?" We both would say, "You know what I mean," to each other a lot. I never knew that they had a live show. Thundercats had a live show. Of course, I remember Ninja Turtles had the traveling live show. Yeah, you're on it, Gene. I appreciate that. I'm a little ahead. There's a delay. I think Tiger Sharks is actually coming. I think it's part of that Nacelle shared universe where The Rock is actually a co-owner of that company. Too good. Moving on. Lore Olympus is, I think you could easily argue, the most popular English language webcomic, because it's actually in publication everywhere. Well, it's getting adapted. So Amazon Prime Video announced that they have ordered an animated series for Lore Olympus. It's based on the webtoon comic by Rachel Smythe. Interestingly, some of the production houses, WEBTOON, no surprise there, and Jim Henson Productions. That was interesting. I didn't expect that. I didn't know Jim Henson Productions worked in animation. I thought it was all puppetry and marionettes. I don't know. Yes, I did. So anyway, yeah, Jim Henson Productions working on this as well. The official logline. This is what Amazon says about it. Witness what the gods do after dark. Hey, I got there first. Nobody else has said after dark before me. The friendship and the lies, the gossip and the wild parties, and of course, forbidden love. Because it turns out the gods aren't so different from us after all, especially when it comes to their problems. they're not so different from us. They wear denim pants. Stylish and immersive, this is one of mythology's greatest stories, the taking of Persephone, as it has never been told before. 1.8 billion global views, folks. That is pretty insane. Lore Olympus is among the most read webcomics. If you haven't read it, it reinterprets the Greek myth of Hades and Persephone and turns it into a sort of modern setting love story. Kind of takes out the pure abduction aspects of it that are pretty prevalent in a lot of Greek myths. The Greek myths are very misogynistic if you look back at them. There's a lot of gods turning themselves into an animal, sneaking up on some woman somewhere and going, surprise, and like giving her a baby. A lot of that. This sort of takes it out and makes them more relatable people. So anyway, very popular though. Very, very popular. And, you know, animation, I think, is growing in popularity right now because of people taking chances on styles. The biggest hit movies in terms of profitability this year have been animated. If you look back at 2025, I think you have to look at K-pop Demon Hunters, Demon Slayer, Chainsaw Man, Zootopia 2, and go, oh, you know, it's definitely animated movies are what people are into. And I get it. There's it can be about real things that we relate to in terms of relationships, but it's got that cognitive dissonance that it isn't the real world. A love story for all time. Stockholm Syndrome, the comic. Moving forward. Let's talk about what I put in the thumbnail. And by the way, I just had to show this. This was Jim Lee occasionally does art streams, and this was him drawing Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy, which isn't technically manga, but is certainly a Japanese character. And I really liked the techniques that Jim used in this, not just the hatching, but, you know, that he was doing some interesting stuff with feathering and smudging the ink. I go, every once in a while, Jim Lee draws something and I go, wow, you know, when he's got his time to sort of experiment and not be like rigidly locked into just hitting a deadline with his style, he really does impress me. I want to kickstart Comic Tropes, the anime. Thank you very much, Steve. I appreciate you. So let's talk about what was said and where, what the context is here. Jim Lee, if you don't know, most of you do, but not everybody, he is the DC Comics president as well as their chief creative officer and the publisher. And he spoke to Nikkei X Trend, which is a Japanese site about marketing. Wouldn't have necessarily expected them to interview Jim Lee, but they did. They talked about his career, current trends in comics, and then honestly, the advantages of Japanese manga and anime the advantages that they do have over Western comics. It is in Japanese, so everything I'm going to be sharing with you has been translated back into English. Anyway, here are some quotes from Jim. The stories told in Japanese manga and anime are incredibly powerful. I often find myself wondering what is missing in Western comics and why aren't they able to achieve the same flavor? Not sure that I agree 100% with that part. Also, I think manga has an advantage over American comics, which are mostly about superheroes, and that's where the majority of sales and readers are concentrated. And I do think that that is true, although I would also argue over the last maybe at least 30 years, the genres have opened up more in American comics compared to basically what they were from like the 60s through at least the 90s, which was definitely 30 straight years of nothing but superheroes. You know, I think that horror, romance, sci-fi, humor have all grown. Crime. I think that they're not It's not as diverse here in America as it is, honestly, in either Europe or Japan. It isn't. But it's getting there. It's getting there. Well, I think that Jim would argue that that's part of why DC is doing Vertigo, is to get back into trying more genres and pushing things. Another quote. In Japan, it's closer to literature, and anyone can read it. And it's not just hero stories. That's definitely true. There's stuff aimed at all segments of the population. And a lot more respect for it over there. There's a much wider range of genres, like stories about cooking and soccer. You can draw stories from that. So I'm very happy that the manga has been so successful, because it gives me a goal to aim for. The manga market is bigger than our industry. So the question becomes, what can we learn from this? The only thing I will point out is that Jim is, and I understand where he's coming from. You know, he's in the thick of it, and he's looking at the stories. And I would argue that there's a piece of the puzzle that's bigger than just genre and storytelling. That's important, super important, maybe the most important. But another important factor is distribution. The fact that when you're in Japan, you're going to see things like Weekly Shonen Jump in every convenience store. You're going to see it everywhere. You're going to see advertisements for normal products like, I don't know, shaving cream, we'll say, based on manga characters. It's much more prevalent and respected because it wasn't kneecapped like American comics were. The comics code turned everything into like comics aimed at kids. And that's why superheroes did well. They were a genre that younger readers appreciated. And it grew with them, but it was still aimed at younger readers. And stuff like horror or autobiography or anything serious or based in the real world just wasn't really encouraged. And it really kneecapped the industry for a long time. Whereas in Japan, that didn't happen. So comics have always been able to be adult if they need to be and aim themselves at those readers. And I think that because so many people read them, that helped them with things like circulation and distribution. I think that it's still a fantastic deal to pick up. Hold on, I'm going to pull something out here as a prop. It's going to make a mess, but that's okay. That's okay. I just got a stack of comics. Dave from West Coast Avengers would kill me if he saw how I stack my comics just anywhere that there's space. That's Dave. I am thinking of potentially selling like a ton of my comics to just pay down my bills. Last year was really tough with medical bills for us. So I've got right here a Weekly Shonen Jump. And let me double check what the price was on this. This was a couple years ago, so I don't know if the price has changed. Geez, I don't see it very easily here, actually. I guess they just get used to it costing whatever it costs. Where do I see yen? I see the date. I see the title. Well, it's less than $10. American is all I remember. And it's thick. Like, there's so many stories. And it's very competitive to get in here. Now, here's the thing. There are also problems with the manga industry. In that, because of this competition, their artists, I would argue, put in more hours than American artists. And that's probably not physically healthy. Why do I even say probably? Don't equivocate. It isn't healthy. But they are also compensated better. Now, they don't have full rights, but they've got a much better, cleaner distribution system where the publisher is going to split the rights, but they are putting up, the capital to publish it, and they're getting them networking into opportunities so that there are the video games, movies, TV shows, toys. And those are all revenue streams that benefit the creator, that they wouldn't be able to, navigate themselves, at least not initially. So it's interesting seeing like Jim Lee, who's basically having to compete with manga, admit all these things that manga does well. And, more power to him. I appreciate that he's open to the fact that you need to acknowledge manga does very, very well. But we see a very narrow bit of manga. Even though if you go into Barnes and Nobles, it's a lot of manga. If you go into an actual, bookstore or something, there's just so much more. We see the stuff that has mass appeal. It tends to be sci-fi or fantasy that like people from all over the world could understand. Like, but you got to understand that there are still comics that are, very political or divisive over there. We just don't get to see them as much. But I think even like some of the most popular books that we can look at, like I'm trying to think, but what's the one with all the giant monsters? Attack on Titan. That has some strange politics going on there that, it's kind of easy to look at when you just view it as nothing but sort of a action fantasy. But there's definitely political tones to that. And there's definitely real things being said with books like Akira or Ghost in the Shell. So I'm just saying that as soon as you start looking at this stuff very seriously, manga does still have issues, but I do admire very, very much how they've been able to target that storytelling to a wide range of the populace and get it out there at a really affordable price. Even as like the industry is smaller now than it is in the 90s. Like the 90s, manga was just insanely big, but it's still very affordable. I get it. Manga is easier to get into. Yeah, that's true in a lot of ways. Want to start One Piece? Start at volume 1. It's like IKEA. Want to read X-Men? Well, that hurts, but they coexist. I get what you're saying. That's also an advantage to manga, is that story will be by that creator or creators all the way through. And then might get spin-offs or sequels, but it's generally going to be that one creative vision, for good or for ill, because some of them can lose their way, but it's relatively consistent because you're not handing it off to somebody else to just take over. And so it's very easy to go, hey, you want to read this? You start at volume 1. That's just where you start, and you go for as long as you want. I think that something like One Piece does get intimidating because of how long it's been around. EJ always has a good view on this because, he got to grow up looking at Chinese manhwa and Japanese manga and stuff. I have right here a 500-page Kaiju number 8. Costs 840 yen. That's less than $6 US. Yeah, very, very affordable. Even when you consider, that stuff comes over here and it might cost us, say, $12. That's still a really good deal for how much you get out of it. Really, really good. Yep. I think a rising tide lifts all boats. So, if we can find ways to work with manga and use the interest in manga to translate to other comics, I think it is a good thing. I don't think that manga just takes away from comics readers. I really don't. There might be some segmenting where these people only want to read manga, these people only want to read US comics. But I think that there is crossover. I think, because you can, if you love manga, you're going to run out at some point and be waiting for the next volume. You're going to want something similar. And I think that you are likely to try American comics or bande dessinée or some other form of comics. It's an interesting discussion. And I would never have expected this conversation to happen on like sort of a such a business oriented marketing site, but it did. So just to be clear, there's a short link that I created if you want to read it yourself. There's a few more quotes by him. I think it's a relatively interesting piece. It's not super deep. I think I've talked about the flavor of what it is, but you might want to get it. You might want to read it. I mean, they 100% influence each other. Daniel Warren Johnson and My Hero Academia example. Absolutely. Ryan Audley, super popular for Invincible, Spider-Man, now Battle Beast, has done official covers for things like My Hero Academia. So there is some crossover there, and I love it. And obviously a lot of American comics look to hire any Japanese creators they can. I think of how popular Carl Barks and Don Rosa, two artists, if you don't know, that do Scrooge McDuck, are around the world, and it makes me sad it's not like that here. Scrooge McDuck and Donald Duck still tremendously popular in big parts of Europe, Australia. So is the Phantom. I'll keep going, though. This looks so fun. I love this, folks. Look at this. Mad Magazine is going to release a 64-page one-shot, all new material on April Fool's Day, dedicated to satirizing the DC Comics universe. That sounds fun. That sounds so fun. Coexist, I mean all comics at the end of the day. Yeah, manga, comics, bande dessinée, I think they all use the same storytelling techniques. Some emphasize certain storytelling elements more than others, but there's a lot of crossover. It's the same idea. I call them all comics. All new stuff, to be clear. Yeah, because they haven't really made a... Mad has been putting out mostly reprinted stuff since 2018 when you see it. But this is going to be all new stuff. All new. Here's the thing. Guest editor overseeing it, Chip Zdarsky. Super funny guy. Super funny guy. Great choice to have overseeing it. Here's some of what we're getting it. Sergio Aragonés. Love to see it. Certainly the oldest living Mad Magazine alumni at this point. He's going to do a mad look at comic book stores. Big fan of Sergio. Jim Zub and Ramon Perez teaming for Guy versus Spy, which I assume is Spy versus Spy with Guy Gardner. I can only guess. Brand new DC fold-in, those great things that Al Jaffe did for years and years, by Charles Soule and Ryan Brown, creators of books like Curse Words, 8 Billion Genies, Lucky Devils. That's cool. I love that. Look at these artists. I won't read them all, but these are all artists that are contributing. Kyle Starks, Dave Johnson, Tony Moore, my buddy Tony Moore, Mark Waid, Jerry Duggan, Scott Aukerman from Comedy Bang Bang, Mitch Gerards, Joanne Starer, she's great, Kelly Sue DeConnick, Scott Snyder's in there, Colleen Duran, Ryan North, Erica Henderson, Riley Rossmo. I mean, just an absolute killer list of talent. Isaac Goodhart, he's fantastic, super underrated. Like, I love Isaac Goodhart. Matt Fraction, look at these names. This seems like just like it was made for me. And I'll tell you, I loved Mad Magazine and Cracked growing up. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Love seeing all of these creators that are working on it. Scotty Young, Jay Bone, Bruno Redondo, Dennis Camp. Come on. Gail Simone. This is just amazing. I love it. I just thought I know I'm sharing a lot of things that are really just press releases for upcoming comics, but some of these really excite me, at least the idea of it. Love, love, love. I'll keep moving on, but I was really excited to see all these creators. Scotty seems like a great fit for Mad, but so does Tony Moore. Tony Moore, I think you look at his work, and how can you not see Jack Davis from EC Comics and Mad Magazine and stuff like that? How can you not see Jack Davis and Tony Moore's artwork? Love it. Love it, love it, love it. We knew this was coming from Comic-Con, where DC announced it, but now they have details. Folks, this week, DC formally announced what they're calling Swamp Thing 1989. It's going to be a 4-issue series that will complete Rick Veitch's Swamp Thing run from the 1980s. Rick Veitch was the writer who took over after Alan Moore, also critically acclaimed, but his run ended abruptly with issue 87. The publishers at the last minute didn't want to publish issue 88 because the publishers thought readers might get offended that Swamp Thing meets Jesus Christ. He was on like this journey of going back in time through the green, and he'd met characters like Arthur and his Knights of Camelot. And then he was going to meet Jesus. But this is actually going to happen now. They're actually publishing it, and they're turning it into 4 issues, not just the unfinished issue. They're going to allow Rick Veitch to finish his storyline that he was doing at the time. So the first issue of this Black Label branded series is going to feature the actual artwork of the late, great Michael Zulli, who was drawing at the time. And they're going to use his inker, because the work wasn't like fully inked or anything, but Vince Locke was the guy that was inking him back then, still working today. He's finishing Michael Zulli's pencils along with some guidance from Michael's widow. So it's really exciting to see them all working together. And then the next 3 issues are going to just roll in another guy who was drawing Swamp Thing at the time, drew for a lot of DC stuff, Tom Mandrake. So certainly a good fit. It will feel authentic to what was coming out back then. Very cool idea. Very cool idea. Responding to fan demand for the title, DC got a quote from Rick Veitch, and he said, "The response from readers was immediate and overwhelming." They'd put out a survey early last year. "It helped me make the final decision to publish these issues. I am grateful to the fans for stepping up, and to DC's team, especially editor Alex Gaylor and editor-in-chief Marie Javins, for pulling off the impossible." I mean, he was super offended at the time and has not worked, in mainstream comics, certainly not like Marvel or DC ever since. He's done some Image stuff, mostly with Alan Moore, but yeah. Issue 1 is going to be 32 pages. And that lands on April 29th. And then it's going to be monthly through July. Yeah. Still no word for sure about TMNT. This can only help that become more likely. If for folks that don't know, Rick Veitch wrote and drew a 3-issue run of Ninja Turtles in the original Mirage run. Eastman and Laird were getting busy, and they wanted it to come out more regularly, so they invited professional friends to do stories. But that's basically not been reprinted. It was reprinted once, but it hasn't been reprinted much. So a lot of fans haven't been able to know that story. I do have an episode of Comic Tropes that sort of breaks down the history of that and what that story is. Swamp Thing for President 2028. Let's get the swamp back in politics, as long as it's Swamp Thing specifically. Swamp Thing. He'll give us all veggies. Hopefully they'll release the collected Veitch run with the new issues. They have said at Comic-Con, they being DC, that there will be a trade paperback that also collects these. So they'll do all of Veitch's run, including these newly finished issues. I think it's really exciting. I know not everybody has read this run, and that it's at this point, admittedly, a full generation ago. I get it. But I'll tell you, it was a great run, and I'm really confident it will hold up because I've gone back and reread the old Alan Moore and other issues of Rick Veitch's Swamp Thing, and I think they really do hold up quite well. Thank you. The Jack Kirby video, I was very encouraged to see how well it did. That's really, really nice. I appreciate it because I put in a lot of work and I wasn't 100% sure how it would go. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, always appreciate hitting like or thumbs up. I don't mention it enough, but it really does help spread videos to new viewers. Yeah, they've released 2 trades of Veitch's run. There's one more to go that would finish it, and it's going to but yeah, there's gonna I think it's 3 total. I think 3 total would cover his whole run, not 4. I said that so confidently. Now I'd have to double check, but I think it's going to be anyway. There's one more, and I just wanted to share it because I think it's really cool, the idea of an unfinished comic like this getting published, and I just see DC taking chances on new ideas with their existing properties, and I appreciate it. I see them being more creator friendly than they have been almost at any other time in the past. Very creator friendly. What are my personal opinions on Tom King's Wonder Woman? I would say I sincerely enjoyed the first few years. I am still reading it. I feel like it's losing its path a little bit, especially after she basically beat the Sovereign, who I think was a very interesting villain. But I'm starting to lose my interest in it. It doesn't help that I really enjoy Absolute Wonder Woman so much. That is just a fantastic take. All right. What else? Let's talk about some Batman things. The Hollywood Reporter says that screenwriter Christina Hodson has been hired to write the movie The Brave and the Bold. We knew that was supposedly a priority for the DCU, but we haven't heard a lot about it since James Gunn got appointed as the head. But Hollywood Reporter says that she will be the writer, which would formally introduce Batman and Robin to the DCU. The film has had, and technically I believe still has, director Andy Muschietti attached. He's done the It movies and the Welcome to Derry TV show, which I thought was pretty darn strong. He also did The Flash. Didn't really love The Flash at all, if I'm being honest. But I still think he's got talent. He also did a really cool horror movie before it called Mama. I think it was called Mama, and it was pretty darn good. So I think he's got talent. Is he the right fit? I don't know. The Flash was a mess, but I don't know if that's all his fault or not, because I've liked everything else that he did. We'll see. It's not confirmed if he's going to remain in that role or not, because just to be clear, Welcome to Derry did very, very well for HBO, and they are definitely going to want to do more, and that might take up his time. Like, who knows who's in first position or second position with producers. I don't know. It's all Warner Brothers. So Warner Brothers might just say, like, no, we want Andy Muschietti on Welcome to Derry season 2, and you can get somebody else. Or he might just be like, no, I love Batman. I am going to do this first. I don't know. The story specifically is going to feature the Damian Wayne version of Robin, which is probably a good idea just because he hasn't really been represented in film before. So that would be something new. And that's Batman's son, secretly raised by Ra's al Ghul's League of Assassins. And Batman doesn't know that he's got a kid until he meets this little preteen punk, but who's very, very smart and capable. Hodson, what's she done before? She previously wrote apparently a very acclaimed script for Batman Beyond that came close to getting made as a movie. But ultimately, Warner Brothers can't decide what they want to do with superhero stuff. So that didn't happen. But all accounts say it was a really good script. She did do rewrites on Muschietti's Flash movie. Let's not hold that against her, but it's how she knows him. And she did the scripts for Transformers, Bumblebee, and Birds of Prey, which I think are both underrated. Bumblebee, I think you could argue, is the best of the live-action Transformers movies. I would argue that anyway. I would argue that it is. And I thought Birds of Prey was pretty damn fun. I thought that was... that took better advantage of what's her name as Harley Quinn. What's that? Margot Robbie. Yeah, that took advantage of her better than the either of the two Suicide Squad movies. And I really liked James Gunn's The Suicide Squad a lot, but she wasn't as important in that movie. I thought Birds of Prey had some pretty funny stuff and some pretty cool action, and the scene where Harley snorts a ton of cocaine to get like superpowers in a fight against the police was pretty damn funny. Oh, that was good. That's an interesting point. I didn't know that he wrote that. Craig Mazdan wrote Superhero Movie, Scary Movie 3 and 4, but then he made Chernobyl, great TV show, and Last of Us. Yeah, so I'm willing to give the writer a chance. Yeah. All right, moving forward. Guess what? Jeff Loeb has lined up his next project after Hush 2. Hush 2 hasn't even come out yet, but yeah. Jeff Loeb and Jim Chung, who's a very good artist, they're going to team up for a book called Batman, Wonder Woman, The Truth. That's the subtitle. 48-page comic coming out April 29th. DC's solicitation for the book explains the premise. Batman and Wonder Woman team up for a classic caper brought to you by superstar talent writer Jeff Loeb and artist Jim Chung. The lasso of truth has been stolen. I like that. And the Cape Crusader and Amazon Princess race to ensure a safe return before it falls into the wrong hands. You won't want to miss the aftermath of Batman Hush, featuring the devious duo foolish enough to steal from Wonder Woman, the Joker and Harley Quinn. Wait, what? That part surprised me because it's saying that it's going to be the follow-up after Hush, but continuity-wise, Harley has been completely separate from the Joker since what, like around the New 52 era, when Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti did the solo Harley book. She hasn't been allied with Joker in a very long time. I feel like Jeff Loeb just sort of gets to do whatever he wants. I don't know. Maybe there's going to be a reason for that, but I don't love that idea. I love the idea of Wonder Woman getting her lasso of truth stolen. That's kind of a cool premise. That's a really dangerous weapon in the wrong hands. I love that. Continuity is not just a suggestion. Apparently, it's a very light suggestion. If Hush 2... Well, supposedly, the final issue of Hush 2 will come out in March. And that's why this is set for April. But I'll believe it when I see it, because it sure seems like Jim Lee is drawing anything else that he can. Sorry, just needed a dose of caffeine. I don't know. I was really let down with Hush 2. I don't know if I read just 2 issues or 3. I think 3, but it was not great. And remember, that was originally supposed to be sort of 2 6-issue runs. They were going to take a hiatus, but I haven't heard them mention anything about the next 6 issues in like a year. They just want to finish the first 6 issues, and I don't know if they'll ever come back to it, because I think they've ruined it like any reputation that it had. The first Hush was kind of fun to just see all the different villains as drawn by Jim Lee. That was it. There wasn't a whole lot more to it. I don't think anybody's ever been able to take, what's his name, Tommy something or other that plays Hush, and turn him into something great. I don't know. Too Hush, too quiet. All-Star Batman will finish before Hush 2. Yeah, we've seen Jim Lee go to like South Korea and Hong Kong with his family. He's drawn covers for things like the Marvel DC collected omnibuses. He's done covers for, he's going to do dust jackets for the Absolute comics that are coming out in like hardcover form. I don't know. Oh, this is, let me see. One of my friends interviewed Jeff Loeb 3 weeks ago on her channel Splash Pages Comic Book Club. I suggest checking it out. Maybe I will. That's what I thought. I thought Harley hated Joker, so it's weird seeing that they're going to team up. I don't know. Oh, that's interesting. I haven't ever heard that, so I don't know if that's just you wildly speculating, Dave, or not. But that's an interesting idea that, like, yeah, when it came out, like, people were like, and they maybe decided to completely redo it. Maybe. I haven't heard anything like that. I'm going to keep going because I've got nothing more to say. I think that the artwork looks nice, but I guess I'd rather have great artwork and a crummy story than a great story with unreadable artwork. But ideally, both are really, really good. Oh, this is kind of fun to see. Supergirl, The World. DC announced this book. It's going to be a hardcover anthology, spotlighting, obviously, the character that's got a movie coming out this summer. And it's going to be her story interpreted by 15 creators from 15 different countries. I like that. So comes out June 2nd, 184 pages, only $24.99. I think for a hardcover, that's very reasonable these days. So for the United States, they've got Mariko Tamaki, Skylar Patridge, and Joelle Jones. For Spain, somebody called Anneke. I'm afraid I don't know all of these creators. They've got Italy represented, Serbia, Cameroon. I'll be honest, I never would have guessed Cameroon. I did not know that they had a comic book industry or anything. If you ask me where in Africa do they make comics, I'd go South Africa, Kenya probably, maybe Nigeria. I never would have guessed Cameroon, but okay. Finland is represented, Argentina. Turkey benefits from getting Mahmoud Asrar, but he's going to both write and draw it. So that's interesting. We usually only see him draw, although I think he did come up with some of the story for Bug Wars that he did recently with Jason Aaron, and that he's going to continue. France has Kid Toussaint and Joël Jurian. I'm sure that there's somebody. France has a huge comic book audience. So does Brazil. But we've got Poland, Mexico, Germany, Colombia, and Japan. And Japan's creators, I think Satoshi Miyagawa wrote that Joker manga where Joker is raising a Batman baby. And I'm pretty sure Kai Katago is the artist of the Superman versus Meshi, where Superman flies over to Japan for his lunch break every day and gets some different meals. So yeah, that was interesting to see some of this. No conduct, no fictional countries represented, but yeah, it's kind of a cool mix of a bunch of different countries. You know, I mean, they could have just been like UK, Spain, France, Belgium, Italy, you know, like just the places where we know comics are from. But I know that Argentina and Brazil make comics. I didn't expect Serbia, Cameroon. I didn't expect those. I don't know much about Germany's comic background. I just don't know about it. But I think it's really cool. I think it's really cool. So the reason it says cover is it's going to get published worldwide on the same day, or released the same day, and there will be a dedicated cover for that country. And I don't know if they'll also release some of those covers in other markets, but it's like each market gets a cover by their local hometown hero. So that's nice. That's a good idea. I think it's a really cool idea. I don't know how, you know, every anthology is always hit and miss to some degree, but I think it's a cool idea. Here's a quick bit of news. Stan Lee, Artgerm. Wow. pretty famous and popular creator. Well, he's recently been faced with some comics readers who think he uses AI. My guess is because AI was probably trained on his style. Anyway, he's been an acclaimed comic book creator, but also video game concept and character designer for a long time. I know he's done stuff for Capcom with Street Fighter. He helped design Luna Snow for like Marvel Rivals, I think. He also, co-runs an art course in Singapore, digital design and illustration. So that he's got a lot of credits, but fans are like saying, "Oh, I think he uses AI." So recently, if you've been looking at his social media, he's been defending himself against AI accusations by posting his original sketches and then the final art side by side. And I think what's interesting is at first glance, like he's got, the pose figured out. But if you really look, there are differences in maybe like hair or facial expressions that clearly gets figured out as he's doing, the noodling, the details, and figuring out like the shading and stuff like that. But I loved seeing some of these sketches, very, very rock solid artwork. I'll be honest, personally, I think I kind of like the line art better, but that's just my personal tastes. I really like line art, and I think it looks cool. Oh, that's cool that you've been able to see him draw in person. Yeah. Yeah, I just think he's unfortunately one of these people that, like, I think that AI got trained off of him, a bunch of different AI, because there is a lot of AI that sort of has certain coloring and shading techniques that look like what he does, but it's so unfair because he's been working before there was really any AI stuff. Here's a quote. "It's funny to see that there has been an increasing number of young audiences accusing me of AI. For what it's worth, here is another round of sketch to finish posts for those who find them useful. Thank you." I would encourage you to check it out because he released a lot. I wasn't going to show them all. Like, it just doesn't feel like the right thing to do, but it does sort of make me go, yeah, we need to be a little more careful of who we accuse. Sometimes it does seem super, super obvious, but we should be careful. Yeah, I would love to see more of his line art. In fact, like some of the things like Supergirl and Emma Frost that he posted, I was like, oh, I feel like there's way more verisimilitude to a character's face in his pencil sketch, and then the painted version I felt looked almost too simplified somehow. I was a little surprised. That's my only real point, is that AI does get trained off of real people. It isn't coming up with this stuff out of nowhere. I'm going to switch over to some Marvel news. Maybe some of you came across this if you're chronically on YouTube like I am, but this was some wild drama. Wild drama. There's a guy named Kingsman265. He's a pretty popular Marvel Rivals streamer, and he is the top-ranked Magic player. He's really good at using Magic. So his team were actually drafted into a $40,000 tournament competition held by an organizer called Basm ZB. Okay? During the practice, and you can watch videos of this stuff, I tried to think of clipping it, but there's some pretty long matches and stuff, and it was just more than I had time for. But it's kind of interesting to watch, and this is why I'm sharing it. Okay, somebody else knows what I'm talking about. During practice with the team, Kingsman asked his teammate Zazastak to swap off Black Widow for someone that could help the team better. Different teammates benefit each other in different ways. If you haven't played it, like, they can combine their powers, and sometimes you want to do things like run a bunch of healers or run a bunch of, strategists, things like that. And he argued why he had a reason for that. Instead of cooperating, though, his teammates, including the team captain Cece, and I don't know how to pronounce her name, but Lukayasa, they push back on him hard, kind of make fun of him. They criticize him for being like overly competitive. And he's like, well, guys, I'm in college. I really want to win this money. And you can just tell that he's got a good team that's like, but they were not very motivated by the money, which in one regard, you almost have to admire. They obviously did not care about the money, but he did. Zaza Stack's partner, allegedly, it was her partner. I think most people haven't fought that one though. Compiled and sent highlighted clips to the organizer, framing Kingsman as toxic because he keeps arguing his case, and he's saying, like, look at how disrespectful he's being to these ladies. I've watched it. I think he's very respectful, and I honestly don't think his team hates him or anything like that. I think that they are still a team. It's just he's trying to argue what would work better. And because they're not doing it, he's kind of like, well, see, like, we are not playing as good as we can. And I think that's fair. It's $40,000, not each, but like for the whole team. But still, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Based on the narrative, Kingsman was removed from the team and the tournament before it began. Now, the organizer later admitted that the removal was a mistake. Kingsman posted his side on a stream, and that went pretty viral. That's why I'm talking about it. It drew a lot of viewer support for his thinking. It's like, yeah, he's arguing his case strenuously, but I don't think he's being disrespectful personally. I really don't. Fans ended up being on his side because they donated more than his share of the potential prize money would be to him. I don't think he expected that, to be honest. I really don't. I think he was just arguing his case. And this is what he does. You know, he streams this game and talks about it. So anyway, it ended up being a win for him. And then CC issued public apologies. And I guess their team lost at least one brand partnership in the fallout. So all I can say is there are videos out there about it. Some of the popular YouTubers, I'm trying to think because I don't really follow all of these people in the game world too much. What's his name? Moist Critical. Moist Critical did a video on it. And at first I was like going to sort of go like, well, if he was kicked off the team, you know, he must be toxic. And then I started like listening to the clips and I'm going, oh, I feel like I'm kind of on his side. And then you find out that almost everybody was on his side and you go, okay. Anyway, it was a bit of drama, but I think in the end, there's not really that much hard feelings. It was just that, yeah, he didn't get to compete in the tournament, but he did get donated the money. So it's sort of like, well, I guess everybody got what they wanted. All right, more drama. This isn't really drama. No, it's not drama. Never mind. To celebrate the 20th anniversary of Civil War. That's right. 20th anniversary. That makes me feel old. Marvel's going to do a 5-issue Civil War series set sort of before, during, and right after the event, telling news stories that fit in with this old event. Hey, love it or hate it, it was popular. So obviously a lot of people loved it. Personally, I kind of hated Civil War and Civil War II. I thought that they were both kind of garbage. The central idea of having heroes have the moral dilemma and battle each other isn't bad at all. I mean, I think that is some classic superhero trope stuff. But when you build it to the size of an event, you kind of have to have one side be wrong. It's really hard to have both equally correct. And I think it made Iron Man look bad in the first one and Captain Marvel look bad in the second one. That's my opinion. But anyway, they're going to have this 5-issue sequel. A lot of people loved it. It's coming out in May from writer Christos Gage, artist Edgar Salazar. And each issue of Civil War Unmasked is going to spotlight unseen stories from some of the major players in there. Iron Man, Spider-Man, Goliath, I believe he died, right? I'm pretty sure. Tigra, and Captain America. Captain America did work, and that was because they flipped it into showing that there was an actual villain manipulating them. That was brilliant. The comic didn't have that. They didn't have Baron Zemo manipulating things. That was what they needed to sort of get past that. Yeah, that's right. Ragnarok ends up killing Goliath. And you're like, wait a minute. Reed Richards built a robot Thor that could be so out of control that it's going to kill someone. I was like, that doesn't sound like it's in character. Yeah, they buried him as a giant. And I'm like, Ant-Man couldn't come by with some extra Pym particles and shrink him? I don't know. That was weird. Anyway, the first issue is going to feature Bishop taking Iron Man to the Days of Future Past timeline to show the impact of his actions. That's what Marvel says anyway. I don't remember Bishop having time travel powers, so I don't get what that means. I don't know. But maybe it'll work. Here's an important piece of news, folks. I told you, this is going to be really heavy stuff tonight. We're going to talk about the stuff of legends. Because on February 2nd, Oreo will team up with Marvel to release Stuff of Legends featuring, let's point this out, color-changing cream. Have you ever bitten into an Oreo and been like, this is delicious? Unfortunately, the cream just still looks white. Boring! And you can't finish your cookie? Because who could? The cream didn't change color. Oreo has solved this problem. There are also 32 Oreo designs in it featuring Marvel characters. Galactus, Venom, Cyclops, Spider-Gwen. They're all here. Have you ever wanted to eat a cookie with Doc Ock on it? Well, now you can. There are 3 bags with different art, all by Todd Knock, who I do respect. And here's the fun part. There's a QR code on it so that you can look at a hypothetical 4th bag. Not a bag that's in stores, just an image of a 4th bag. Again, the cream changes color. So it tastes like Oreos. The face of it has like Wolverine or, the Scarlet Witch or Ultron. But when you bite into it, the cream changes color. Blind bag Oreos. They figured it out. Oh my God, this broke my heart. Do you see what's happening here? Look at that price on this. But then look at how it's drawn versus the one on top. Maybe you'll get ahead of me on this news story. All right, so Ultimate Endgame #1 came out pretty recently. Marvel's first blind bag. Had something like 500,000 copies printed, and in there were 2 original Robert Downey Jr. sketches. One of his character Iron Man, one of his character Dr. Doom. Okay? Wow. Well, that's a pretty valuable find. That would be pretty cool. On eBay, someone has sold 2 knockoffs, each for about $3,500. Ooh, buyer beware. Buyer beware. That is not the same artwork, folks. If you look at the lines, it is not the same. It is close. It is copied. It is not the same. According to Bleeding Cool, this is just something you could know if you were ever in a position or a friend was in a position. The real covers, like that Robert Downey Jr. drew on, have a quote from the maker on the back that the just regular blind bags that are just a blank sketch cover that you can draw on, they don't have that quote. And Bleeding Cool specifically did not say what that quote was so that no one can fake it. But anyway, if you flipped it on the back and there was no quote, that is fake. So yeah, somebody out there is making knockoffs and pocketing $3,500. Ouch. That is a lot of money to spend on nothing. Ugh, just hurts. Just letting people know. I doubt anybody here would have even tried, but just got to keep that news out there. Yuck. Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So Paramount Plus, this was in my news a few weeks back. They recently announced that they're canceling the cartoon, Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which continues from the Mutant Mayhem movie. But apparently the comic version is going to keep going. That is going to continue. Editor Jake Thomas this week said to comicbook.com that the comic book version will go past what the show did. It's going to continue. And the comic, by the way, is written by Andrew Joustra, who worked on the script for the movie, and he recently wrote the film sequel that came out before the SpongeBob movie. It's only 7 minutes, but Chrome Alone 2, Lost in New Jersey, fantastic short film. Very funny, very, very funny. Yeah. I didn't get any of those blind bags. I forgot. I literally forgot what day it was, and I just didn't get any. I've heard Robert Downey Jr. is a pretty good artist, actually. So, yeah. Yeah, this version's popular. My understanding is the movie did very well, and that the toys did very well as well for Playmates. So I think that it's popular. This comic shares a continuity with the show and movie. There's also just an ongoing Ninja Turtles comic that's its own thing. So there's more than one version. Yeah, they're still developing the next the actual sequel. Not just developing, they're making it, but it takes a long time. I liked the movie a lot too. I thought it was really, really good. Yeah. No, the movie is still coming out, but they had a TV show that was meant to just continue in between both movies, and it got 2 seasons, and then Paramount basically decided to cancel everything except for like SpongeBob and Paw Patrol and like all their other properties. They were just like, no, we're not going to continue them. I don't know anything about The Last Ronin game. Sorry. This looks like a kind of cool thing. I like pulp comics. I like the history to it. Mike Mignola is teaming up again with Tom Snagosky and artist Craig Rousseau to do a new Young Hellboy miniseries. They do a good job on those. New series is going to focus on Scarlett Santiago, also known as the Sky Devil. She's a plane specialist back when airplanes were new and exciting and super cool. She was first introduced in 2021's Young Hellboy story, The Hidden Land. She teamed up with Young Hellboy and Professor Brutenholm, but this story is going to focus on the pulp adventures of Sky Devil against new villain Ghost Leopard. Could be fun. It's going to be 4 issues, and that starts May 20th. That was the word I was looking for. Thank you so much, Kevin. It didn't come to me. Thank you. Is there anything else? Oh, yeah. Just real quick. The Eisners. The Eisner Awards this week inducted 18 comic creators into their Hall of Fame as elected by their judges. Now, during the awards ceremony at the San Diego Comic-Con, they also have pros vote in 4 more. But the judges each year get to convene and they vote in a group of people, and there's some interesting people this year. Edwina Dunn, she was a cartoonist on a comic strip called Captain Tubbs and Tippy. I think that's Golden Age stuff. Oliver Harrington, a pioneering African-American cartoonist. Don Heck, I was a little surprised to see him get in there, but Don Heck is underrated, you know? He's got some good Iron Man and Avengers stuff. Abe Canigson, was a letterer and background artist on The Spirit, worked with Eisner. Paul S. Newman was a writer who claimed to have written more comics than anyone else. Maybe. Hector Esterheld. A lot of you may remember my episode on The Eternaut, or maybe you saw that there was that Netflix show from, was it Argentina last year? But anyway, Hector Esterheld is getting in there. He was disappeared by his government. Tom Palmer Sr., one of the best inkers ever in the business. Worked with Gene Colan on Tomb of Dracula. Always elevated anything he inked. Really, really incredible. Love that he's in there. Jimmy Swinnerton did comic strips, I think, called The Little Bears, Mr. Jack, and more. Sorry, I'm not an expert on that one. Bob Balling. He's the guy that created Little Archie for Archie Comics. I think that Chrissy would know those. My wife likes Little Archie. Jerry Conway, glad to see him get in there. Like a lot of his stories, co-creator of The Punisher, Firestorm. Long time writer on Spider-Man. Really, really good. Dennis Cohen. All right, nice. Dennis Cohen is a co-founder of Milestone Comics. He co-created Static. That alone is gonna be a legacy. But he drew The Question. That was a great run. Really, really cool. Yeah. Mike Friedrich. Indie publishers. Nice to see somebody like that recognized. Lee Mars was an early feminist cartoonist, creator of something called Pudge Girl Blimp. Oh, sorry. That one is a blind spot for me too. Go Nagai. Go Nagai is a mangaka that's done, like I say, Devilman, Mazinger Z, Cutie Honey. That's a lot for a legacy. A lot of memorable stuff. But Mazinger Z specifically was like the first piloted giant robot character. So that was huge. Like that is sort of a subgenre at this point. Like I don't think people think twice about, an iteration of Voltron or something. But Mazinger Z was the first. Bud Plant. Bud Plant was an underground comics publisher and a distributor in the early days of distribution. Definitely important to comics history. Dave Sim. You could argue that that's controversial because, he basically became a total asshole. But his impact on comics, 300 issues self-published of Cerebus. Beyond being a writer and artist there, he definitely did a lot to advance self-published comics, self-published conventions like SPX. He was a key proponent of. Worked on things like the Comics Creators Bill of Rights, which sort of kept the ball moving for getting creators more rights in comics. He did a lot. It is awesome that mangaka can get Eisners. There's people from, Dave Sim is Canadian. Hector Esterheld is Argentine. Like there's people from around the world. So that is kind of cool. So, you might be a jerk as an individual, but you still did a lot for comics. I think that makes sense, to be honest. Somebody called Carol Tyler, I had to look her up, and she did a lot of autobiographical comics and has worked as a comics educator in college. So, yeah. All of these people won, Wayne. All of these people are now in the Comics Hall of Fame. This isn't like a list of people that get it'll get smaller. All 18 of these people were elected by the official judges to go in. And then at the awards ceremony, a few more will get inducted as voted. They have two lists, a list of people that the judges select and a bunch of people that can get voted on to get in. So there's always sort of two lists, but these people all got in. I bet he will get in there someday. I bet he will. That's true. Yep. They published Miss Tree. They published an early William Messner Lowe book, Journey, Flaming Carrot, which had Mystery Men in it. Like they did a lot. Yep. Bud Plant. That was for a long time a way to not just get independent and small press books, but sometimes imported European comics. Like if you wanted to see something from Mobius or something from Japan, Bud Plant was the guy that could get that. It was really cool. Oh, and last but not least, Rick Veitch. He was in the news today. Artist and writer on Swamp Thing, Brat Pack, Max Immortal, The One, 1963 with Alan Moore, all sorts of stuff. Supreme. Great creator. Yeah. It's in my episode. It's really But anyway, some really amazing and diverse people, like, distributors, mangaka, artists, writers, educators, comic strip people. Really, really cool. And then just real quick, some upcoming stuff that caught my eye before I'll do some quick reviews, and then I'm going to draw. Let's see. So this looked a little interesting to me. Alpha Clash. It's a sci-fi action book. And the reason it really caught my eye is that Mark Waid is writing it. And the artist, AJ Light, looks good. It features people with powers that are called alphas, and they're mysteriously disappearing. So yeah, I guess this is part of a shared universe called Rising Empires. That I don't know much about, but this particular story sounded pretty cool. Let me just check something. I'll be right with you. Derek Kirk Kim. I was asking him when his new book, The Royals, is coming out so that I, when it's time, I can talk about that in the news. He's getting that info. There's the website for it. I thought that looked interesting. And then bear with me, folks. I'm going to plug something for a charity that's important to me. I've got a friend, Will West. Will is somebody that I got to meet in person when I lived in the DC area. He does a lot of blogging and a lot of podcasts, not just about comics, but all sorts of entertainment stuff. Really, really lovely guy. Good friend. And unfortunately this week, Will had a stroke. And he is a husband. He's got 2 little girls, and he cares for his elderly mother. So there is a fundraiser there to help. I don't know if any of you have read his blogs or reviews of comics or seen him or heard him, I should say, on a podcast, but he is sort of, in this world. He wrote lots of articles for a site that I used to be an editor for, the Robots Pajamas. And anyway, he's just a good guy. And, something serious and unexpected like this happens. It's a huge financial burden. That's just the system we're in. So I just thought I'd put a QR code up there if you're in a position to donate $5 or $10. I'm not asking for it for me. I'm just asking it for somebody who could use the help. So hopefully that doesn't annoy you that I wanted to plug my friend's charity in that case. Thank you for listening to me. With that said, why don't we transition over to doing the comic book reviews of the week? Yes.
Let's review.
Review it.
The review.
The reviews are in. I repeat, the reviews are in.
Go to your reviews.
What?
Speaking of bad reviews,
Don't worry about that review.
let's review all the facts.
All right, gentlemen, let's review.
Before we do, let's review.
Those reviews really came out fast.
Maybe we can review some right now?
I'm not going to review all that again.
Now let's review.
Not my worst review.
Let's review, shall we? To review.
I think I've reviewed about as much as I can.
All right, here we go. Thank you for giving me a moment to get set up there. Throwback review to Turok #1. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I was about to just use my camera to look at stuff, but I remembered. I wasn't able to get to my comic shop on Wednesday. I was working. And sometimes when that happens, I don't grab there's some things that I read that I haven't added to my pull list. That's on me ultimately. I messaged my store and they had to back order a couple things that I got. So actually what I did is I want to keep up with them and be able to talk to it if it was news or anything. I've got 2 books that I had to buy digitally, and then I'll buy it like once my store gets it in physically as well. So over here, these 2 books I read digitally this week. And actually both were good. Fantastic Four was really good. Fantastic Four, I think has a different inker this week than has been working with Humberto Ramos before. I didn't have time to double check that, unfortunately. All I can say is I really liked how the artwork looked in this issue. It was strong. It was really strong. Yes, Mondays are for Turok and roll all night and party every Turok. But so I don't have lots of pages to flip through on these since I read it digitally. But the cool thing about this issue was, again, it has a mystery, a scientific mystery in it. And this particular mystery, it thought through the ramifications of what this could mean. So it's the premise is the Fantastic Four, specifically Reed Richards, has found a hidden code in the background cosmic radiation of the world. Basically, it's Galactus has a hidden message asking Susan Storm to come find him. So if they're going to figure out what this mystery is, they're going to have to go on a spaceship to like the outer edge of the galaxy, okay? Well, these days, the Fantastic Four altogether have 4 kids, and they're not going to take them with them. But they go, well, but if we leave them here, other, aliens or geniuses could also decode this message and know that we're not here. So if we're going to leave, we have to sort of find people to watch out for our kids. And you get some subplots with like Johnny Storm asking Wyatt Wingfoot, who's like an old friend of the Fantastic Four, to help out. And, Susan Storm asks a newer friend, a Black Cat, to help out, which makes sense because you go, well, normally they'd ask somebody like She-Hulk that's been on the team. In the comics these days, She-Hulk is also out in space on planet She-Hulk. Okay, so she's not available to help. Now, they don't waste time slowing down and explaining why they don't ask every single friend. It's like, why didn't they ask Spider-Man? Well, you'd have to address a lot of what's going on in that comic. So he just didn't happen to be one of the guys they ask. Okay, it's fine. But the villain is the Mad Thinker, an evil genius, but he's not quite Dr. Doom, right? He's super, super smart. He thinks ahead, and he invents all these androids that would counteract the powers of various Fantastic Four allies. So he attacks the kids, and sure enough, their allies come, but the Mad Thinker has counteracted them. But what they don't count on is what Ben Grimm, the Thing, does. And ultimately, this story is specifically about Ben. It's told from his point of view. And he talks about how over the years, sometimes he's gone up against more lower level supervillains, and he gives them a little bit of grace. He doesn't like pound on them relentlessly. He's given like 1 or 2 of them like, a ride when they need it. He'll go to the bar with no name, which is canonically a place where supervillains hang out, and he'll play some cards with them and just treat them like normal people. He's like, if they're not doing something actively bad right now, I can treat them like a real person. And so he's got like this backup team of supervillains that are willing to sort of like as a one-time favor, watch out for the kids. And I loved so many aspects of that because Ryan North thought, okay, if I'm going to tell a story where the Fantastic Four go off into space, and there is going to be that story probably next issue, first let's deal with the ramifications of what that implies to the supporting cast. and let's make a story out of it. And beyond that, let's make it a story that tells us something kind of special about one of our main characters. And not only that, it really fits with the history that we know about Ben Grimm. Ben Grimm has in the past befriended Sandman and helped him to become a superhero for a while. There was a time when Sandman, Spider-Man's enemy, was a reserve Avenger and served with Silver Sable as a heroic mercenary. There was a time when Ben Grimm got along with a supervillain called the Constrictor. And to like just build on that idea and just say like, you know, hey, he's going to stop them if they're committing a crime. But if they're not like killing someone or, you know, doing something that evil, he's going to give them way more mercy than if he goes up against somebody like Dr. Doom. And I loved that idea. I love that they fleshed that out. And the story and the characters that you get to meet in the story are really, really cool. So I do recommend picking it up if you get a chance. It's really captivating. And it shows that, you know, even with some of these ongoing serialized superheroes, you can still get some real human drama out of it. And I was really in awe. The other thing I read digitally this week was Exquisite Corpses. I like this one more than a bunch of the previous issues. It went at a really good pace. It jumped around all over this sort of town where these serial killers working for rich people are taking each other out, but also taking out, you know, innocent bystanders. I just, to really break it down, I'd almost be giving away that story and giving away what makes it special. Because while the characters are believable, it is, I would argue, a bit more plot-based. All I can say is Exquisite Corpses, I've enjoyed. One or two of the issues I felt have moved a little slow, considering it looked like a tournament-style thing where characters were going to be taken out left and right. But this one was a really good issue that did give me some twists and turns, gave me a really cool bit of a twist with the family that's secretly running this. I was like, okay, I see how potentially 1 to 2 of these people could get ahead of all the others. And I was like, that's interesting. And it was scary and creepy. The killer that we basically focus on in this one is a guy just dressed up in a bunny mascot uniform that's like just a serial killer. And I go, yeah, that is a creepy idea. I used to have a recurring nightmare sometimes, folks, where a man-sized bunny was just walking around on 2 legs, and it was so scary to me. Anyway, what happened? A bunch of people are congratulating Finn Harrison. I missed something. I'm sorry. Oh, you know what? I think that they did have the letters column in the digital version. I gotta, because I think I was flipping through and saw a name that looked familiar. Congrats though, Finn. That's great. 3 so far. Wow. I love the book. I really do. I'll go back to this. I also read Redcoat, and I've talked this up before as a book I like because we've got a guy that's immortal but otherwise doesn't have any powers, and he's kind of a scumbag, but he's got a heart of gold. You know what I mean? A Redcoat deserter who is immortal as long as he stays in America. Well, now we're jumping forward to the early 1900s, pretty far past the Revolutionary War. And yeah, it's already issue 16, and we get like to see some of the characters that were in the very first arc, like Albert Einstein and Benedict Arnold. It's a really cool return of the first enemy, and they didn't rush that, you know? I mean, he was in the first arc, and then they told all sorts of other stories. By the way, look at how beautiful that architecture is for turn of the century New York. That looks so good. Yeah, sort of Frank from Donnie Darko in that comic. Yeah. Oh, but yeah, he was in my. I was having that before the Donnie Darko movie. Now that I think of it, but yeah, I haven't read it yet. I should. A lot of people say that it's great. You found a letter of mine published in 111 of Savage Dragon? I don't even remember what I would have written. I don't have an issue in every issue of Invincible, and at some point I stopped sending them in because I'd had so many published, but I do have a lot. And I have some art in some of the books too. Yeah. There was an era. Anyway, I really love this issue, folks. What's cool is that Simon has been around by this point for a number of years, and he actually has a family at this point, and it's made him just a little bit more reliable. He's still, not perfect, but it's cool to see him change. And this book will jump forward and backwards in his timeline a little bit, but this is about as close as we've got to the modern day, minus one sort of epilogue to the first arc where he got to say goodbye to Albert Einstein at the end of his life. This is great, though. I'll tell you, they made a really good villain out of Benedict Arnold. They did, because he seems like he should be a friend, but then he just betrays people. It's kind of perfect. I like the art in it a lot. I guess I have one small criticism about the art, because I love the art, but I think that Brian Hitch draws Simon Pure's wife a little inconsistently. Like, I don't know who he maybe modeled this off of, but like, I don't feel like she always looks completely consistent. I think that the other characters look a little better. Like, I think everybody else looks consistent. I don't know. This was probably the second best book I read this week. Just to be clear, it is explained how he still has a red coat. He basically picks up tailoring skills over the years. That's what he's actually working as to support his family by 1909. I would say that the chances of Simon meeting Oppenheimer are better than zero. Better than zero. He's met a lot of popular Western heroes. Johnny Appleseed, Annie Oakley. It's cool. The other books I read this week were okay. Last Starship started off as a book I really liked, but I liked it because they had a cool captain, Sato, and they had James Kirk, and it was set in an interesting era. This one tells an interesting human story about the first officer, and the conceit is this is way in the future for Star Trek, and their faster than light warp drives don't work anymore. So all these alien races are starting to become very isolated, okay? They get this Borg technology that can go faster than light for them, but it doesn't go fast. Like, when they're going faster than light, the time on other planets is still passing. So basically, this guy keeps coming back to visit his parents. Like, it's taken a month of his time, but it's 5 years of his parents' time. And he keeps coming back to them and seeing the world sort of in kind of worse shape. And he's doing something for the benefit of all humanity and stuff. And he's seeing, like, when he goes back, like, everybody's older and the world is kind of getting a little worse. Interesting, but kind of depressing. I was like, where's Kirk doing action stuff? I kind of need that. Like, if you're going to give me like this depressing timeline. And Powers, Powers was pretty cool. This is issue 5. This is the best issue of Powers yet, because it truly focuses on the mystery, and it focuses on interesting detective stuff where detectives are interrogating a super genius. and they're really just sort of stalling for time to see if they can frustrate him into slipping up with any detail because he's so clever. But they're probably not really beating him. Like this actually, and that's what's cool is that I'm getting a villain, or at least an obstacle that is a true challenge to the heroes, and I did like that quite a bit. So this was one of my favorite issues of Powers 25. It moves at a really brisk pace. It leans into Bendis's penchant for overlapping, realistic dialogue, witty dialogue, and it benefits from that because it's an interrogation scene primarily. Well, the reboot. Well, not reboot, like just the sequel series, we'll call it. Power. It's been 25 years since the original Powers started. It's been gone for a long time because it wrapped up its story. But now there's like a new generation of people and there's new stories to tell. I like Powers. Even if you don't always love the dialogue that Bendis does, I think he's really good at coming up with unique mysteries that play fair and have some cool twists, turns, and good villains. Right. Going back to Star Trek, it isn't warp speed, but it is light speed travel. So it plays with the true, time dilation isn't new to Star Trek. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it was used well. But what was my favorite? I said this was my second favorite. My choice for book of the week, just to be clear, was Fantastic Four. Really good human story. Had a good surprise, had good humor, had good action. Fantastic Four issue 7 was my pick for book of the week. And it was a kind of light week because I think it was I'm pretty sure it was a 5th week, which are generally pretty light. So I thought I'd draw a little, or really ink a little. And I don't know about you. The only thing I can think of is what's going on in the world. And if you don't like this, that's fine. But I'll talk a bit about what's been going on in my life and what I've seen lately. And I'm going to ink Absolute Batman dropping an elbow on an ice guy because I just feel like it. It's going to make me feel better because I'm very depressed about the world. Oh, I will catch up at some point on Assorted Crisis events. I will catch up on that because I hear nothing but good things. Working Class Batman. Working Class Batman. What else was I going to talk about? I've got my little ticker. Remind myself. Oh, a TV show based on a comic came out this week. It's called The Beauty. I don't know if anybody else watched it. It's an FX show, so it's on Hulu, at least in America. I think for most of the rest of the world, that would mean it's on Disney Plus. And just thinking through Light Source a little bit here. It was very amusing, The Beauty was, but it is a big departure from the comic. I will also say that. It's got the same overall premise, but oh my God, is it over the top, which I should have expected because it's produced and overseen by Ryan Murphy, who does shows like American Horror Story and American Crime Story. He's very campy and cheesy, and that's sort of his brand, I would say. So it was different than the comic. If you've read the comic, it's a really cool premise of an STD that makes you beautiful, but eventually burns you out. The comic focuses on two New York City detectives investigating these people that seem to have spontaneously combusted, because it's not really known that the Beauty can do that. And there's sort of this long-term conspiracy behind it that's slowly worked on. the TV show has people literally explode, and it's only just beginning. Like and like the main characters are having an affair. It's way trashier. Say someone finds themselves in Seattle for exactly one day. What food should they seek out? I wouldn't say that Seattle has the best foodie culture, to be honest. But if you like seafood, certainly the salmon and the king crabs, stuff like that would be something you'd want to go for. Yeah. Batman is about to go all Ric Flair on him. I do have him doing a bit of an elbow drop, and I think I've zoomed in a little too much, actually. Let me zoom out a little more. Yeah, and I know some of you guys here, Jack. I fed him just before I started the show. I thought that would be enough, but my buddy loves having little bits to eat throughout the day. He doesn't like big meals, but he does love eating. Little bits. Anyway, I liked the beauty, but it just know going in that it's a very Ryan Murphy take on it. It's intentionally sleazy and trashy and over the top, and just takes sort of the very broad strokes of the idea of an STD that makes you genetically beautiful, but also kills you, which I guess you could go in a few different directions with. I think I do prefer the comic book version of it because it treats it a lot more realistically, and like how bizarre and scary something like that would be if it existed. But I'm not against the TV version. I'm not against it. I'm curious if anybody else read both. Yeah, I don't remember the second arc as well, so, but maybe. Yeah, he thinks that he hasn't been fed in his entire life. Oh yeah, many times. It's not a humongous store, but it has a lot of great independent stuff. It's a really nice store, and they one of the walls always has a rotating art exhibit on it, and that's really nice. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, Fantagraphics is I consider myself lucky that is local and that I can go to it every once in a while. Whenever the Short Run Comics Festival was, maybe like a month or so ago, maybe it was longer than that, actually, now that I think of it. Maybe it was like 2 months ago. That was probably the last time I went. And I went with Dave, who was in the chat earlier, West Coast Avengers. We had a good time. We found some cool stuff. The Pacific Northwest is definitely a very comics-friendly area, which is cool. Anybody going to any Comic-Cons or anything anytime soon? It needs to be pretty dark. It's an armpit. Yeah, the show's way more graphic with all of it. No, I never watched that. Sorry. Yeah, I guess it was like the end of November, just before you left for Japan. So I guess it was a while ago that I went there last. Oh, thanks for watching. Yeah. I never mind doing an interview, and if my, micro celebrity can help a smaller comic book YouTube channel, I'll do it. But I do worry that it can burn out my audience because maybe like they've heard the same questions all the time, and I can't control like what gets asked. But I thought that Michael on Dollar Bin Bandit asked some pretty good questions, so I had a good time. Portland has several comic book publishers. Dark Horse started there, and now they're owned by a company in Sweden, I think, a video game company, but they still have like a base of operations in Portland. Image Comics is in Portland. I'm trying to think if there's any others. At some point there were. I've been on Ink Pulp. We drew G.I. Joe characters. I've been on Ink Pulp. I love those guys. I'd love to go on it again at some point. Thank you for the super chat. Just wanted to thank you for liking my picture of my original character fighting the ice guy inspired by the first Captain America comic. Well, good for you for drawing it. Exactly. He's going to arrest criminals whether they have the badge of law or not. If we see people like this just murdering innocent people for no reason, Batman would absolutely come down on them like a ton of bricks. No question in my mind. I don't know whether you were joking or serious. Oh, I know, little kitty, it's so rough. Feed me, Dad. Don't worry, he'll get fed as soon as I'm done doing a show. He can wait. He can wait. He is very well taken care of. That I can promise you. Oh, yeah, that's such a good price point, the compact comic version of it. I love that story. Interesting. One minor complaint, the narrator's serif font, lowercase, made it a little difficult to read. Whew, I'd have to see it on that scale. I'll have to flip through it and double check. Oh, I know what else I saw. Sorry, I just caught like the tail end of my ticker. It's on Tubi now, so you can watch it for free. The weird satirical movie, The People's Joker, which is about like it just takes some of the characters from Batman and just changes them. It's by a comedian who's worked with like the Upright Citizens Brigade, and she's edited a lot of comedian stuff. Vera Drew, and in this she plays a version of the Joker who's trans, and it's a really interesting movie. At first you'd think, okay, where does this go? And it's also really low budget, so everything's filmed with like on a green screen, okay, with like fake backgrounds and stuff, but real props. Cheaper though than like something like Sin City. But then it leans into that aesthetic, and it starts to become a benefit because they'll switch, and some segments are done with like puppets or are done animated and stuff. So it's constantly changing its visual style, and it keeps you sort of paying attention. It's engaging. And then the character drama itself was just like interesting. The humor was good. It was way more engaging than I expected it to be. I was like, well, I'll watch this as like a novelty. Chrissy watched it too and was like, this is pretty cool. And I was like, it is kind of cool. It's definitely indie. Like there's no question about that. And it's like about anti-comedy more than comedy. But it works. I thought it was really, really cool, to be honest. I was surprised and impressed with it. If you're looking for, if you like movies that do different type things, or you've just seen a lot of standard movies and you're just looking for a very different type of drama, you might want to check it out. I thought it was pretty darn cool. Yeah, I didn't think like it would necessarily get by, but it was good. Heavy anime, dude. Tubi has so many cool things on it right now. I saw Civil War in the theater, and that like felt like I watched, some sort of dark documentary. I came out of that like a little shell shocked. That is a tough movie to get through. It's good. It's dark. Yeah, I knew Vera Drew is also the director, the writer, the main actress. She made something really cool. It's called The People's Joker. The People's Joker. It takes place in sort of a Gotham where that it's pretty fascist, honestly, and comedy is run by the government, and there's a show called UCB Live run by Lorne Michaels. It kind of like parodies Saturday Night Live really, really hard, and no one can do comedy except for people that are authorized to. So Joker's Harlequin is what she goes by, and her friend Penguin start an anti-comedy club. They're like, hell, we're saying that it's not comedy. It's really interesting. Oh, thanks for watching. You're very kind. Thank you. Just having fun doing something outlandish and crazy. I don't generally draw something this exaggerated, but I wanted to sort of give a shot at trying it because Absolute Batman is such a, crazy, over buff, it's just bonkers. And I wanted to lean into that and see what happened if I gave it a shot. And I'm having fun. Yeah, it's coming out okay. I know. It's so tough being Jack. It's so hard to be a kitty. You don't get fed every second of every moment. I love cats. They're funny. Did I see anything else? I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I really saw this week worth talking about. I guess just the fact that I put out, in addition to the Jack Kirby episode, I'm going to get rid of the ticker because we're basically towards the end of the show at this point. I did a dedicated episode for my patrons and supporters, like the members on YouTube at the $2 and up level. I did a dedicated episode about Omaha the Cat Dancer, which is an erotic comic, and I would argue one that has some artistic merit to it and has helped the industry in a few ways. So I had a lot to say, more than I thought I would. I really enjoyed making it, and the response to it seems pretty strong. So, if you wanted to support the show, just know that you would get, every month a bonus piece of content. Sometimes things like early access or a blog about what's going on behind the scenes. But in this specific case, I made an extra episode about Omaha the Cat Dancer. And yeah, I think it was an interesting bit of history and I'm glad that I explored it. I think it's one of my better episodes. I haven't had time to go out to the movies lately. I really want to see 28 Years Later, Bone Temple. I don't know if I'll have time. I am making time on Wednesday night to go see Hard Boiled, I want to say 92 movie with Chow Yun-fat by John Woo. Love that movie. Saw that in the theaters back in the 90s. Excited to see it in the new 4K resolution. Jimmy Swinnerton, Fantagraphics has released a great collection of Jimmy, the comic art of James Swinnerton. Oh, that's good. Yeah, Fantagraphics does a lot to keep that stuff alive. I just don't know much about it. I haven't seen that because I canceled my Netflix subscription as soon as Stranger Things wrapped up. I was like, yeah, I want to see how this wraps up. But I am just... I mentioned this earlier in the show. I am really behind on credit card debt thanks to mostly medical bill stuff over the last year. It's almost, tax time. And every year I owe a ton in taxes because YouTube doesn't automatically deduct them. But I'm really behind the 8 ball. So I had to I'm looking for places where I can cut expenses. And one of them was to cut some streaming stuff. So I canceled Netflix. I'm going to sell. I've got a truck, but I don't need to have a second car. So I'm going to sell that. And then I'm giving some strong thought to doing a claim sale at some point on this channel. Maybe sell off my comics or other collectibles. Because I would really like to try to climb out of this debt. It's not going to be easy, but I think I've got some stuff I could sell that would probably help. We'll see. That is the current goal. That is the current thing dominating my waking moments. We'll see. We'll see how it all goes. But yeah. So I canceled Netflix. I'm selling my truck. And I might sell my comics. We'll see. No loan sharks, but when you've got credit card debt, there is a percentage that you're paying in interest. That's frustrating. Oh yeah, that's right. That came out. There were a few trailers that came out this past week, weren't there? I was never into Masters of the Universe growing up. It just wasn't my thing. So that is to say, I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, this looks pretty fun. I thought the joke about having He-Man in his normal life being this guy, Adam, on Earth, working in a company, and he's got a placard on his desk that said Adam, I forget his last name, but Adam, and then it had his pronouns, he, him. I was like, that's a pretty good joke for He-Man. I was like, that's a good joke. Anyways, and then kind of looks like, honestly, a Guardians of the Galaxy style, humorous sci-fi. I think that's a sensible way to position it, since most people that know He-Man it's not enough of an audience. It's we're all grown up at this point. That's not enough of an audience. You gotta get new people too. So you gotta have an easy entry point with the style and the story. So anyway, I was kind of impressed. I go, that doesn't look bad at all. I don't know. I guess I didn't have enough time to look and see if the take that I just gave is what the popular consensus is or not, but I thought it looked pretty good. No, I haven't. Wonder Man is interesting. A character that I actually like, a superhero I like. The show, I think you're right, Jeannie. It either comes out tomorrow or the next day. And Marvel has done very little to promote it. However, the reviews for it are pretty darn strong. So that's encouraging. I think that Marvel must just not have a lot of faith in this somewhat more obscure character. But it looks like the response from people who have already seen it is quite strong. So that's encouraging. I like Wonder Man, and I'll tell you, in the 90s, I enjoyed his solo series, especially thanks to the artwork by Jeff Johnson, who I think is a very underrated, cool artist. But it's not an easy comic to come across. They'll never reprint it because it was written by a guy who did some very unsavory things and went to jail for a while, quite a while. So it'll never be reprinted, and it shouldn't be. It's going to be forgotten history. But I will say that the artwork was good, and it was kind of a likable take on the character. It's cool to see a character who doesn't have to be a genius or have, the best superpowers. He's kind of just strong, and he's a little dopey sometimes. I liked it. Do you have any thoughts on Dragon Ball Super returning in their remake of Battle of Gods? I don't, because I'll tell you, while I know some of Akira Toriyama's art, that's more through Dr. Slump. I've never read or watched any Dragon Ball. Please don't hold that against me. I just don't know it. It's a blind spot for me. It's a total blind spot. So I'd love to... at some point catch up and try to understand this character that everybody really series of characters and story that everybody really loves. But right now, I'll say I don't know anything about Dragon Ball. Blind spot. Top 3 favorite Mountain Dew flavors. Let's see. I was trying to think if I could say that in Japanese. I do know all those words, but it's not coming to me easily. If I didn't care about the sugar, it would be Code Red, whatever they call orange. I want to say Live Wire, and regular. Baja Blast would be 4th. My nerd card has been revoked. Oh no. I think Jason Momoa is a great fit for somebody like Lobo. I think he's got the look. I think he can pull off the attitude. I think as far as a live action Lobo goes, that's a really rock solid choice. I think he should be fun. Jason Momoa can be pretty funny, and Lobo works best when it is satirizing comics. Not that that's what he was created originally to do. He was originally kind of a serious villain in not Legion. It was Omega Men. But his reintroduction in the 90s with Keith Giffen and Simon Beasley, satirizing like overly dark, like grim and gritty comics, like that's where he shines. And so a little bit of humor goes a long way with a take on Lobo. So I hope that they lean into some of that humor. He can be dangerous. He can definitely be a dangerous villain. I think one of his best appearances in media was in the Superman animated series, where Lobo is hired to capture Superman because there's this alien species that keeps the last surviving member of a species alive on like a zoo. And they want to keep Superman as the last Kryptonian. And Superman's so smart. He's sort of depowered on the spaceship, and he tricks Lobo into throwing Superman into a cage that has the dodo, the extinct dodo bird from Earth. There he gets powered up by the sun, beats on Lobo, and tells the aliens, he's like, well, Lobo is the last of his species. He's the last Zarnian. So instead of keeping me, how about I trade you? And they're like, yeah, that sounds fair. I love that. I thought that was pretty funny and clever. I wonder who, now that I think of it, who wrote that episode of the cartoon, because that was just a really clever use of Superman and of Lobo, and it was in the TV show, not in a comic, but it was a really good use of both characters. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. That was Now he's live action. Not especially, to be honest. No, not especially excited about Spaceballs 2. I think too much time has passed, and I have a lot of admiration for Mel Brooks, but I don't see him being tremendously involved at his age. We'll see. Is there anything else TV or movie-wise that I'm missing out on? I only have so much time, but, you know, I do listen to you guys for your recommendations on comics and TV and stuff, and try to catch up on whatever I can. I just don't always have time for all of it. It's frustrating sometimes. Sorry. Which comic will finish first, Age of Bronze or H2SH? If I'm being serious, H2. But that has been a long process for 6 issues. Long time coming. There's a sugar-free Code Red. Oh, it's regional. I've never seen that. Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, I don't think that there's anything else that I've seen or done lately, but since Christmas, when I've given myself a little bit of a break anywhere, I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima, which I got for Christmas, and I know it's old at this point, but I don't have lots of time for games. That was a great game. I know I'm like the last to the party to talk about that one, but yeah, Ghost of Tsushima was great. Really, really good. Lobo isn't for everyone, but space dolphins are. We probably won't get space dolphins in the Supergirl movie, but if Lobo's popular enough, maybe we'll get them in another one. Space taxi? Oh, you mean Space Cabbie? You probably mean Space Cabbie. Yeah, if he's going to be anywhere, Space Cabbie would probably be in that movie. Or maybe in a Lobo movie. I don't know. A Lobo versus Hulk matchup. Yeah, that could be fun. That could be fun. Boy, that's interesting. I can imagine the graphics and you know, stuff like that being better, but the story for Ghost of Tsushima is fantastic and based on a lot of historical fact. I really liked it. Oh, I don't know if there's anything else that I've got to talk about tonight, folks. I might have finished the episode. I think we did all right. I think we got through it. Yeah, again, my condolences to Sal Buscema's family and his widow. Sal was great. It was fun to remember some of the comics that I really loved by him. growing up, and congratulations to the amazing artists that are going into the Hall of Fame for the Eisners this year. That's pretty cool too. Just having fun noodling around here, but I guess I should wrap it up because I'm not going to have enough time to finish all of this tonight. But you get what I'm going for, I think, right? All right, this was my way of dealing with what everything that's going on, is just finding a way to represent some of that anger through art, which I think is probably a healthier means than just about anything else. Yeah, pretty wild foreshortening, I know. Maybe I'll come back to this at some point. I don't know. I think I'm going to get rid of the highlights on this because it looks sloppy. Just make this a piece of black armor. Yeah, I think that's a little better. I had fun, folks. I had a great time. I hope you had a good time talking about some comics with me tonight. Let's see. Yeah, we can do that. A moment of silence for Alex Pretty. He seemed to be a very decent human being. Folks, I appreciate y'all in this community, and I'm excited for next week. There's going to be some good stuff. I am currently working on an episode talking about Nick Dragata. I got to double check if I'm pronouncing his name right now that I say that. That would be interesting. Yeah, my sister had to say goodbye to her kitty, Ricky Bobby. He was an old man. Any of you that watch this regularly may remember in October, I visited my family, and my sister sat in and did an episode with me, and Ricky Bobby visited. So he did sort of make a little bit of a cameo on the show, and he was a great guy. Really good kitty. Really good kitty. Yes, I'm making an episode about Nick Dragata for the main channel, talking about some of his storytelling techniques, which I do think are actually fairly unique and have some interesting inspirations that I think we can learn from. So, yeah, he definitely deserves all the success he's getting off of Absolute Batman, because Nick has been in the industry for quite a while and did a lot of other good stuff. And, yeah, it's really... It's really, really nice to be able to do that one. There's a lot of good stuff that I'm excited to do. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Jeansy. Good to have you here. Good to have all of you here. You know what to do. Just listen. Keep reading comics. It's good for you. It's good for the soul. Take care, everybody. Peace and love.